Pilates business owners, welcome to the Pilates Business Podcast, brought to you by the people who own, operate and instruct in a successful clinical Pilates studio in Australia. Our mission is to help you to discover Pilates business assets to build your clinical Pilates business success. And now, here is your host, David Gunther.
You will be privy to our team discussions with Tara, Claire and myself on the proposed changes to our process to improve our conversion of prospects to clients. Join us as we toss around some options that you might also want to consider to improve your business assets in this area of your marketing and sales. Remember, you can't help the people with your clinical Pilates services if you can't convert the inquiry. If you don't, then it could be that reformer studio down the road who might, and then that will be your prospect's lived experience of Pilates. Now, we realise that there are thousands of clinical Pilates studios around the world, all operating on different scales in terms of numbers of instructor hours and space available in your studios. Some will be on a larger scale than Pilates Can in Canberra, Australia, and many will be smaller. But whatever your scale, you should always be considering how you can continually improve your operation. This discussion will provide you with many insights and will certainly spark some ideas that will lead to improved profitability. So go ahead now and be that fly on the wall and listen on as our sales and marketing manager from Pilates Can, the wonderful Tara, explains a new strategy.
We talked about maybe having a spreadsheet that admin could update, which had the regular bookings in each session time. You would know it's not instant to go through the timetable and work out which sessions actually have got space available, especially when someone might be away for 6 weeks. You'd have to go through 2 months to actually find that person coming up in the session. Then admin can do something similar to what we've been doing with our Google review process, where they send a list of the available session times to the instructor, so they would be aware of that. A spreadsheet would just help us, because David didn't want the instructors having to check the spreadsheet themselves. So keeping the list would make it quicker for admin to be able to know who is in each time and which times are actually available. And they could send that list to the instructor before the second private session.
We already know that we need that information and we need it regularly. We know that certain people need it at certain times. I need it if I'm going to sell to someone just when they're inquiring, because I'm going to be talking to them not just about private sessions, I'm going to be talking to them about semi-private sessions. They're going to be saying, as they have said to me recently, could I get into that one? And I will either have to say yes or no. That could make the difference between someone progressing into the semi-privates and us spending time with them when they cannot get into semis anyway, or at least knowing that it's going to be more difficult to get into these time slots. They're not available at the moment, but could become available in the future. But in the meantime, there's these ones that are available ongoing, and there's a possibility that they could move into something else over time because things always change. Essentially, we've got certain sessions that are oversubscribed and full that people can't get into, and then we've got other sessions where there's definitely availability to get into those on a regular basis starting fairly soon. So the person who is transitioning, whether the salesperson or the instructor, needs to be able to have that information available very quickly and easily, know that it's up to date, and be able to then use that to help the client make their decision. Does that make sense, Claire?
Yes, actually, I did a few recent privates a couple of days ago, and I was actually talking to them about possible days and times, already thinking about it before we got together for the second session, so that we didn't get to the end and we're all trying to work out what they want to do. It's good to get an idea early, so that's what I was doing pretty much at the end of the first sessions, actually.
It reinforces that assumption that they are going to proceed. If they're assuming they're going to proceed, then they would be looking at what can I actually get into. If they're thinking it's all going to be too hard because the instructor doesn't even know what's available, and nobody's told me what's available so far, they might throw up their hands and think that's just another barrier. I didn't really want to come anyway, and it's costing me money and time. These things that can get in the way. 98% of the time people come into our private sessions and they continue on. Very occasionally they do not for various reasons, and as previously mentioned, we always give them that opportunity. That being the case, Claire, we've talked about salespeople knowing that. As the lead instructor, you know that, but how does your team know about that?
Well, that's what I was referring to earlier. Things have changed so much now since we have remote support. It was all done by admin, and that's what we had decided a few years back. So that is something we now have to develop, and Tara just started on that with the spreadsheet. It needs to be clear steps and quick steps because we have a lot on and we're already trying to process what this person needs. We need the admin next stage side to be fairly straightforward, but we're now trying to develop those processes so that it's quick and easy for them.
Okay, so it seems like the process to me is that we've got a spreadsheet that's being updated by someone in particular on our admin team on a regular basis, a daily basis, that they're there and available and working. And then that is sent to anyone that is currently doing private sessions, as in has a private session booked in, either the first or second session. It doesn't really matter. They'll need to be aware that they're getting this information as the instructor, whose responsibility is to give the client the opportunity to commit right there, either in the first or the second session. It doesn't have to be in the second session. They could be committing in the first session and purchasing their semi-private package so that they can get those booked in so nobody else, because it is first come, first served, and you don't want your client who you've just done privates with and provided a program to then have missed out on getting into the semi where there was only one spot available. And someone else from our clientele has quite rightly taken the opportunity to book into that regularly. So then there's not the opportunity for the new client to do that. That's a fairly simple process, it seems to me.
I think it's just looking at the instructors knowing that they need to be taking that payment. And I think having that information is really one of the big barriers that stops them from being able to do that.
Yep.
Because the prospect might be more or less likely to want to commit, as you've said, if they don't know, hey, I only have Tuesday nights available. And the instructor doesn't know that they are actually spot on Tuesday. I'm not going to give them my money before I've spoken to someone who can confirm that there is actually going to be a spot on Tuesday night, which is the only day that I have available. So I think it's just going to be about educating the instructors and getting them on board with the process of selling and knowing those sessions that are available from that list that they'll be sent. It'll just be a change to what they've previously been doing.
And of course, they'll have to be aware of the latest pricing for the semis, whether it's 1 or 2 sessions a week, and for both packages or direct debit. So essentially there's 4 pricing options. Usually we're just recommending 1 per week to start with, and then maybe increasing to 2 or even 3, as some clients are on, per week with their semi-privates, because we are giving them homework as well.
I think we've all agreed that, as it's particularly since we don't have the administrative support in the studio these days, it's remote, it's really important that we do make these changes. So to reduce any time lag, to be able to help people when they're keen, ready, and already feeling the benefits, to be able to assist them to that next stage. So it is something we need to develop, which we used to do a long time ago, but now we need to make it simple and quick and easy for them to move on.
Check out the show notes in this episode for more details about how you can create these assets for your Pilates business.
So Claire, given that we seem to have come to an agreement that this process needs to be clarified and changed somewhat with the instructor team, what's your thoughts on how you will roll this out with your team?
To meet with each instructor individually and to let them know our new processes and why. It's exciting that there's new inquiry coming through, and we want to make it as efficient and a great experience for everybody. That includes not just the prospective new client, but the instructor, the business, and that we're all moving forward together to a great future, enjoying the journey as we go.
Terrific. Thanks, Claire. Tara, any thoughts or comments that you can add to that?
Some other studios might already be having the instructors move those people on as well, but this is just what we're doing, of course. We've been doing it a particular way, and now we're looking at how we can make our process better.
That's what it used to be some time ago. We changed the process some time ago as well. And now we're having to evolve and change the process again. That's life. That's what happens with a clear and simple process. And really, when you're teaching, is what I've said earlier in the podcast, the assumption should be already in your mind that this person is going on. You're not pushing it at all. They've sought you out. That's why they're here. So you're trying to help them and helping them to keep that regular habit going so they can really feel the benefits, enjoy the benefits. As an instructor, that's how you should be thinking all the time. So it really is just that natural progression. And even in that first session, talking about when and what sort of time, day they might want to do. Then really at the end of the second one, you're confirming that's what they would like to do and sorting it out for them there on the spot so it's all happened, and then letting admin team know so that then they get all their onboarding done as well.
The other thing I would mention is that we do have all of our direct debit forms in the studio already pre-filled to make it as easy as possible for the instructors. As long as they've got our updated costs for the prepaid packages, it means that they're not having to remember the prices of all of these different products. They can just grab out a form or know these two prices for those prepaid packages, 1 a week or 2 a week. That's not too much for them to have to deal with if we have those resources in place for them to be able to remember things. Maybe we have a little hidden behind the desk or something so that they just know what those package costs are.
A little laminated pricing sheet for those standard types of packages and standard direct debits, both for semi-privates and for mat work. It makes it easy. And obviously in priority order, probably the semi-privates first, the packages first, the direct debits, and then the mat.
If the instructor's referring to it, and I would too have to, there's more than just the base ones that I remember. If you're pulling out that information and you've got too much on there, it's too many choices.
I wouldn't say it's something that pulling out. I'd say it's something that just fits stuck up behind the desk where the FPOS machine is. So when that client asks, how much is that? They can just go, oh, it's here, blah, blah, blah. It's not like...
Yeah, I get what you mean. I was just thinking, I know it is a few pages, but you have one just for one semi a week with a couple of options of that payment and then one for the other. If the client does want to look at it, then they're not looking at 10 different things.
So we need to just design that so it's very simple and straightforward and informative with as much information as we think that we'll possibly need. So do you think it needs to be half an A4 page in terms of size, and should it be stuck up there, or should it be something laminated that you can always pull it out and show it to the client if you want?
Rather than leaving it there, we could always pull it out of the top drawer at reception. So for example, we could have a section labelled pricing or packages or whatever we're going to call it. As Tara said, I'm used to it, and I'm particularly used to the costs for 1 a week direct debit and 1 a week package, the top of my head. But if the instructor has to pull it out, this is where I'm thinking you want them on separate things. I'd have to go to a different file anyway for a 2 a week direct debit on a mat or whichever.
Thought I would interrupt our discussion there in the actual podcast with some editing commentary. Just to let you know, what we're trying to do here is to give you access to be that fly on the wall, to witness what we do in our meetings and how the discussion goes back and forth about options. We won't necessarily use these options that we're discussing, so you can wait till the next episode to find out exactly what we do trial in the studio and how we use that, and we'll give you some real specifics in the next episode. Here we're just tossing things around and trying to work out all of the dynamics between the instructor and the client and the business so that we can get it right for everybody with the changes that need to be made. We'll go back to the podcast episode discussion proper, and it gets quite interesting, very detailed, nitty-gritty stuff, and of course aspects of this we use and aspects we don't. So I thought it was important to explain that here with just an editorial note.
I think that there could just be like a quick list, and I don't think we need to necessarily get it out and give it to the client. It doesn't need to contain like how much is that per session. All the information we have in our pricing spreadsheet, I would not say that would be on there. It would be packages for semis, this amount, pay as you go for semis, this amount. That's all that needs to be there.
4 options.
Yeah. So there's going to be 4 options for each thing. I think that can fit on a very small, like little A5 sheet. Even if you wanted to, you could have an A5 sheet that's double-sided. Side 1 is semi-private, side 2 is mat work.
Maybe do A4 because I take a clipboard in with me when I'm doing stuff. All I'm getting at is with the form is because the instructors will be looking at it, the client may just gravitate to look at it as well. That's all I'm getting at.
I'm thinking it's stuck behind the reception desk. So the client wouldn't know that the instructor is looking at a piece of paper or something that's there. They would be like, it is $740. The client doesn't know that it exists. So therefore, they don't want a piece of paper.
Yeah, usually when I'm doing that part, I'm still in the equipment room, whichever room I'm in, doing the private.
I actually like both ideas, the one behind the desk as well as the one under the notes on the clipboard, both laminated so that the instructor can access them whether they're away from the desk or at the desk. They can presumably not show it to the client, but if the client asks, then it's simple enough to point to and say, this is the one I'm recommending, just 1 per week to start with. So you've got 2 choices with 1 per week. It's either a package price or direct debit per fortnight.
I think the danger with having it be 1 per week and like 2 per week, and then what the options would be for that is that people will go, oh, the direct debit is cheaper, but it's a 6-month commitment.
Yeah.
The instructors are needing to give that information. Because usually what we try and do initially with clients is they just go onto a 12 pack because it's easier for them if they do those 12 sessions and they find that actually Pilates is terrible, they hate it, which it doesn't happen super often. But it's less of a commitment before they're having to pay a cancellation fee.
And if they want to go on to direct debit from there, it's easy to progress to that anyway as soon as they really want to.
They just get a form 12 weeks later.
As a Pilates business owner, you know that the right business assets and processes are the defining factors in your business success and the quality of your life. In each episode, successful Pilates business owner David Gunther will unpack proven, practical, world-class assets and processes that you can use to survive and thrive in your own Pilates business. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, then stay tuned. And if you'd like to get there quicker and with less experimentation, go to www.pilatesbusiness.com.au.
What I've been doing is concentrating on the packs, but mentioning the direct debit because I don't hide the fact that there's a direct debit. I say most people like to start on a package, as Tara said, all those reasons.
Yeah, and then the direct debit price can be on the direct debit forms anyway, can't it?
Yeah, it's already on our pre-filled forms.
All the instructor needs to know is that it'll be a bit less per session. Instead of a bit over $60, it'll be a bit under $60.
This is the sort of information, that's what I'm saying. I can't talk to them about doing it till we've worked out the simplest, easiest way for them to do it. The clients receive an email before their second private. Is that correct?
They do, but it doesn't have the sessions we have available. It doesn't have exact price within it. It has some more sort of general information.
No, that's all right.
So it does say like the price it takes you to that membership pricing page that we have. It doesn't have the exact prices on it. It has for sessions as low as a particular price.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't say a package of 12 sessions is going to be this and it's going to last for 4 months and not that specific.
Okay, so I assumed that sort of information was in the email or the link, whichever. But anyway, so yes, I think that would make life easier because we're just reiterating what they've seen. It is a bit funny when you do have someone just suddenly blurt it out. At least I knew, as I said, I knew the one a week off the top of my head. But yes, if they've actually seen that information beforehand.
Are you suggesting, Claire, that we should update what we're doing with that workflow with the email that goes out to include more detailed information?
I think based on what you guys were talking about anyway, prices for the semis, wouldn't that be in the link?
You know that printed out page that we have with the features on it?
Yeah.
It's pretty much that page, but online. It's not something super succinct. And at the moment, it's geared towards the pay-as-you-go option because that's what we want people to be ideally doing. That's being a commitment.
Detailed, but to the what option, Tara?
Pay-as-you-go option, the direct debit option.
So there's a disconnect there, isn't there? Because if Claire thinks she's selling packages and then our workflow email is selling direct debit, then yeah, we need to make a change there so it's consistent.
From that page, you can get to the package page. But David, we had talked about adding more specific pricing information and then update the page that's being linked to from that automation.
Yeah.
So that it's, instead of going to those comparison pages, it's going to the pricing information for semi-privates or format as appropriate, so that they're getting better information about that and the instructor doesn't have to be the one bringing that price for the first time.
It is awkward.
Yeah.
And it's a lot for them to take in. We've already tried to make sure we're doing the best we can to give them the best experience of those first two privates.
For the purposes of Claire, with making that not such a bumpy ride for the instructors, if we get that pricing up on the website and we're able to, then the email that they get in between, in that workflow of inducting a private client through to semis, that email, we'll review that automation process, Claire, to support what we've talked about today with all of those objectives, including that you don't want the instructors really being the ones who have to quote that price initially. This discussion was continued vigorously in various forms after the podcast recording so that we could take into account as many aspects as possible of the client instructor experience, so we could come up with the processes that would definitely improve those experiences and our prospect to client conversion. Next week we share exactly what those changes are that we have decided to trial. So make sure you have subscribed to the Pilates Business Podcast on your favourite podcast app so you can learn and possibly make similar changes to your conversion process. But until then, stay awesome.
You have been listening to the Pilates Business Podcast with David Gunther. If you are enjoying the show, let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. For more information, or if you have any Pilates business questions, visit www.pilatesbusiness.com.au.